Hi there, it's James, welcome back to my channel, I hope you're doing okay. So today I'm going to do another cutting video of plants, and I have so many more things that I've decided that I want to cut before winter is fully upon us, so I'm going to be doing a few more of these videos. Today I only have one plant that I'm going to cut, and I have another plant that I'm going to air layer, because I've been putting off doing that for a long time, and I thought it would be kind of interesting to see how I air layer my plants. Bear in mind before we go into this that I have not air layered a plant this size before. Everything that I have air layered I've been able to do with kind of a tiny little bit of plastic, or actually tin foil I've used before, sphagnum, and just kind of wrap it around and leave it there. But today we have a slightly larger plant, so we're going to see how it goes. I'm not imagining that this will be ready to cut before next year because it's not in my grow tent. If it were in my grow tent, it would probably have good enough aerial roots already to cut. I was going to do my philodendron splendid. So this one here that I'm going to cut today, that I'm going to air layer today, is my philodendron glorious. So it's the hybrid of Milonacrysum gloriosum that I've shown you before, which is doing super well. You can't even see the top leaf, it's so tall at the moment. That might be an issue, we'll get to that. Yeah, I was going to cut my philodendron splendid, but I was taking it out of the grow tent, and the aerial roots are like this long, really like just pouring out of the nodes. So when I come to cut that, I'm literally just going to cut it, and it should be fine because there are good enough aerial roots. So the way that I normally air layer, I've seen a bunch of different methods, and I've tried a couple. Like I said, I've used plastic, I used tin foil, and I've also there's actually here one node that worked for a little while where I literally, can you see? No. Let's put it a little bit closer. So here, look at my ugly moss pole. This is not going to be a pretty operation, by the way. Everything I do plant related is kind of ugly, but it's okay. So this is an experiment that I did before where I just packed sphagnum around a node and kind of kept it wet. And while I was on top of keeping it moist, it worked super well. The roots grew really well. That was during lockdown when I was available to water it multiple times a day, essentially, when it needed it. And since I've been doing other stuff, it's so dry now. I literally just pinch this moss and it's crumbling. Oh my god, that's crazy. It's like dust. Anyway, so that is a failed experiment. So we're going to go for the plastic bag version. So this is just a Ziploc that's torn. So normally I reuse these again and again for plants, for cuttings, for propagation, for shipping things in. So I'm going to use it for this. I'm not entirely sure how we're going to work this today. So let me shuffle this plant way over here. Okay, that's a little better. Right. So the node that we have three nodes essentially that I could be air layering. It's quite nice to be able to look at this. So I've kind of just, look at all this string. I've tied it onto here with a bunch of unnecessary string. So I'm just gonna, can I untie this? This one can stay in place because it's holding it on. And all of this stuff, all of this string, yeah, perfect. I just untie it and I can reuse that to tie it back on in a second. The most effective knot, obviously, in the world. I think I just kind of draped it around there to keep it in place. Yeah, so this node is the one that I'm going to be air layering. It's already got some pretty good aerial roots, which is, well, not pretty good, but they're growing and they haven't shriveled yet, which is good because it means they'll get started growing straight away. I find that with nodes, once the roots kind of shrivel, and turn black, they take a little while because the plant obviously has to produce new aerial roots. They can't just continue growing from the old ones. Sometimes they kind of come off from the side, but it's a little bit less common in my experience. So I might actually just take it completely off this pole and then tie it back on afterwards, just so I have a little bit more ease of access. I haven't just entirely decided how I'm going to do this. I think what's going to happen is I'm going to cut down either side of this bag. I'm going to fill the base with some sphagnum, which I have here. This is just sphagnum moss that I've soaked with a little bit of liquid fertilizer. So yeah, I can tear down here. And that way I've got like a little pouch that I can have. It's going to be quite a lot. We'll see how we go. A little pouch that I can have to this side of the plant, hopefully attached to this pole. And then the rest, this part, I can kind of wrap around and tie it in place. And then when I've got it on there, I'll make a couple of little holes, a few holes through here, and I'll try and make sure that I've got a little bit of an opening at the top to be able to water through. So we'll just see how that goes. Obviously, it's so crispy. I'm not on top of watering this. This is not in a greenhouse, not in a grow tent. It's just in my general home environment. So it dries out very fast this time of year with the central heating on, because it's getting cold in the UK. I've got some moss here, which is quite wet. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to give it a good squeeze before it goes in because I'm getting a little bit of a drippage there, which isn't ideal. I've spoken about this in my sphagnum moss video. When you're preparing moss for a plant, particularly if you're going to be shipping that plant or if it's in an enclosed space, you want to, or a not very well draining pot, you want to make sure it's really, really just moist. So I squeeze it out. Sorry, you can't see this, but you're just going to have to imagine. I squeeze it out until it's literally just wet to the touch. Like moist to the touch, not wet. And then I'm going to put it in here and I'm going to make like a little bed for the roots to spread out into. Yeah, the fact that it's in this little container, hopefully, this bag, hopefully will mean that I don't have to water it as regularly, which is kind of the idea with this. So, this is quite a lot, but I also want that because obviously I'm going to let this plant grow through winter. Hopefully it will put out another couple of these. There's actually a beautiful big one coming through here, which you can't see, but it's gorgeous. And then this previous leaf, which is really nice and big. So I'm going to let it grow essentially through winter, and this maybe will help support some larger leaf growth. I don't know. We might be able to trick it into attaching. I don't know whether I should be putting it on there and getting both of the nodes in, or whether I should just focus on the one for now. It's quite a big bag, and also the roots are going to entangle quite quickly. But look at that, it's so ideal, it's so perfect. Okay, oh my goodness, let's go for both, why not? Let's see how this happens. Am I being overly ambitious? Potentially, we'll just see what happens. Obviously I haven't cut the plant, so it's still being fueled by the roots down in the pot below, but I'm giving it a chance to establish some really, really nice air roots before I think about cutting it at all. From here, what I'm going to try to do is now wrap the rest of the bag around, oh, it's getting caught on some of the chicken wire. So I'm going to wrap the rest of the bag around this stem. How am I going to do this quickly? So I'm going to make two little cuts here just to make space for the petiole here so that I can wrap around and have the petiole sticking around. So again, nodes. Ooh, get on there. I'm already getting super frustrated with this. Okay. So we're going to wrap the top one. The main focus I do want to be on the bottom one, so if the top one's kind of incidentally root, then that's fabulous as well. From here, I'm going to wrap this lower part all the way around there, so I've got a little bit of a seal, and then this top part all the way around here, so I also have a little bit of a seal. Like I said, I've not really done this with such a large bag before, so I'm kind of confusing myself. Somehow I have to hold that in place while I grab some of this string. I'm just going to go round the center once to kind of lock it in place. I'm also going to tie it around this bamboo cane just because it's there and it's a little bit more stable. So I'm attaching it to, if you had a moss pole, I guess you could prise the node off the moss and then reattach it. Yeah, so that is, like I said, not very pretty. We've got one there. I'm going to put one just below the node, and then that should be enough for now, really. And then, it's not super complicated. None of this is very complicated. So I'm going to tie below the node here, and then I'm going to make some holes in my bag just to try and make sure that as I water it, because I'm going to make a little hole at the top as well so I can water into the sphagnum, just so that things don't stay too wet in there throughout. So yeah, that's literally all I'm doing. So I'm going to use my knife and I'm going to make some little holes throughout the bag here, not too many because I do want it to hold on to quite a lot of moisture. Let's make a couple here, one or two here, and like these bags, you can reuse them as many times as you need, and I'll put one at the bottom just for some drainage in case we get any water pooling down there. And then at the top I have a little slit here which is wrapped around the stem, which is where I can easily water into the moss, I hope. Yeah. So in theory, that is everything done. It's kind of attached back to the pole. I've got two nodes in here in sphagnum, and we'll see how they go. Yeah, like I said, this one down here, the remnants of this. Actually, let's have a look at what happened. Yeah, there were some really nice aerial roots, but they've blackened already. I don't know if you can see that. Probably not. Yeah. That was not successful. I think, like I said, if you had it in a very humid environment, so if I had this in my grow tent, or if I had been much more on top of the watering, it might have worked, but alas, it did not. But there you go. Yeah, so this is Miss Glorious. Look at beautiful, how beautiful that is. this newest leaf up here, and then there's one coming through here. And I will keep you updated on this. I don't think it will be ready to cut before spring. But yeah, I'll keep it moist in there. I'll keep checking out the roots, and I might update on my social media. Okay, moving on to part 2. This is where we get to chop stuff. Right, so today's chop is this MONSTERA aurea. It's quite small. I know that I said in a video not too long ago that I wasn't going to cut this, but I'm having some issues with low variegation. So these two leaves, it's kind of alternating. It's throwing out one highly variegated leaf, so it had a highly variegated leaf here, then it's putting out a completely non-variegated leaf, then it put out another highly variegated leaf, completely non-variegated leaf, and now another high variegated leaf. So I'm going to try and just kind of, at least in one of the propagations, encourage a little bit more consistent growth. I struggle a little bit with leca only because there's quite a bit of maintenance with the roots. With a MONSTERA, normally I would allow this to get super root bound before I moved it on, but with the leca, I found that it starts to rot as soon as it gets root bound, or as soon as the roots at the base have to sit in water for a long period of time. So it's just like a lot to, I'm a very low maintenance plant parent, so I have a lot of plants, so there's quite a lot to think about. So part of the reason for this is also just to give this lower plant a little bit of a better chance. So this is also a good opportunity. I think I spoke about this. I definitely spoke about this in my previous propagation video where I was cutting stuff up. But I kind of, depending on what roots I have available, what aerial roots, adventitious roots I have, that really will tell me what medium I want to use for the propagation. So this is a really good example up top. This little, tiny little knobbin, that is an example of something that I would put in water, just to give that a little bit more time to grow. And then, for example, this one around here, where you can see that really large root coming down is the leca, that one would go directly into perlite or leca or soil straight away. So yeah, I'm just gonna get straight into this. Make sure you have a nice clean knife, obviously, so we don't want to poison anything with diseases. And we're gonna go for our first little chop. So as usual, I try and go mid internode so that I'm not giving, oh, this is scary, giving rot a massive chance at getting into that node. This is our first little cut. Look at that. So this is how the aurea comes through. It comes through very pale. Actually, when the leaf first emerges, it's very hard to tell what kind of variegation is there, if any. But over time, it kind of darkens. And then gradually you'll get to a point with this one where you've got like a yellow, this large bit of sectoral variegation is actually rotting, which is a shame. And then the yellow gradually fades to kind of, well, deepens to kind of a cream, which is really nice. So next little bit, this is the one with the large root. So we're going to try and pull it out and see what that root is like. And this is also a really nicely variegated node. So hopefully this will produce a little bit more nice variegation. Yeah. Oh, look at that fluffy root. That's incredible. Nice attached leca. That's lovely. I probably actually would keep this. Yeah, I'd put this directly into perlite, I think. But yeah, beautiful leaf. Like I said, much more variegation. This is one of the highly variegated ones in between. Super nice. You can see the striped variegation, hopefully on the stem somewhere there. Yeah, lovely plant. Aurea, they're just incredible. Really like them. And the final node that I'm going to cut, I'm going to leave this base one in this pot. I might trim the roots off. Is this. So again, it's a little bit hard to cut with the leca all around it, but we're going to do our best. Essentially just trying to cut through stones with this knife. Did I break anything? No, I didn't. Well-established roots. I might have to empty this out in order to woo! Look at those. Amazing. A little bit of root rot at the base, maybe. No, we're okay, actually. That's some of the other roots. Everything here is really nice. But this is, again, a non-variegated leaf. It has no variegation, but the stem is, again, super highly variegated. So it's kind of weird. Can you see that? Even the petiole going up, there's massive stripes of variegation on it, but it just didn't come through into the leaf. So that, I guess it happens. That's okay. And then we've got this base, which has just an immense network of leaves, but also some rot, which is not ideal at all. So what I'm going to do is pull a lot of that rot out, and I'll sort this out off camera, I think, because there's quite a lot to do here. But yeah, look at that. So many roots. The leca is really, really good. I found this is what I was a little bit worried about, like just the fact that you've got roots potentially as they grow deep, grow big, sitting in water for long periods of time. That worries me a little bit. I know that you have to be quite on top of it, so it's my fault, but also like I like methods, growing methods that involve minimal care. I don't want to have to really, really be watchful of my plants so that they don't rot. Anyway, yeah, so here we have, I've got four little aureas, one low variegated cutting, one with one low variegated and one good leaf. I didn't split this in half because there are no aerial roots in this new node, and I just want to give that leaf a little bit more of a chance to harden before I do any kind of cutting with that. And then the base, which is super, super well established. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that was interesting in some way. I know that some people really, really enjoyed the chopping of plants, so maybe this satisfied you a little bit more. I will keep you updated on that air layering. If you want to see updates on all of these plants and on all of my other ones, check out my Instagram at SlugPlants. I post there relatively regularly. If you want to see more videos like this over the next couple of weeks, subscribe to this channel, hit the like button. It's super, super helpful. And I will see you very soon. Thank you so much. Goodbye.